Hey everyone, Lance here again, and welcome back to the Epics'N'Stuffs channel. First things first, let's address the elephant in the room. I had my teeth fixed. Yay! No more gap and random whistling whilst I talk. However, they've only been put back in recently, so it is affecting my speech a little bit. So if you hear me like drag S's or say something very strange, then that sounds strange, then it's probably because of that. Very interesting procedure. Months ago I had my my mouth scanned with photogrammetry technology, which was really cool to see, because when I was working in the games industry, I'd built and utilised a few photogrammetry rigs for character art and video games. So actually seeing it being used to scan the inside of my mouth so that I could get my teeth fixed was very, very cool. And then there was a procedure, and it's also, I'm guessing it's 3D printed using a special type of resin printer. Very, very cool tech. Anyway, enough about my minging teeth. Let's move on to today's topic, which is the GW, the Games Workshop pre-order cycle. And it's come about this, or the reason I want to talk about it just in a little bit more detail and get my opinion on it over, out there in the ether, is because it's becoming, I feel like they make some weird decisions, right? GW, as cool as they are, they're not, there is some idiosyncrasies, I feel, especially in their release schedule. So by the time of filming this, the Sunday preview has gone up a couple of days ago, and this coming weekend we're going to get the Crux Terminatus box, very cool little battle force. And then we're going to get, what is it, Cato Sicarius, the new Calgar model, the Victrix Honor Guard, very cool looking little set of miniatures. The Ultramarines Combat Patrol, the new upgrades and transfers, dice, all that good Ultramarine stuff, like the poster boys for Warhammer 40k. But they've announced all that when the Iron Hands, the Captain with the Relic Shield, Kanak Var, the White Scars box is still up for pre-order. And to me, that feels like it kind of cannibalizes some of the sales, or some of the interest at least, that you would have had in those sets. Now, don't get me wrong, I know they're specific sets with upgrade sprues specific to those kits. And the Ultramarine stuff that's actually going to come out is specifically Ultramarine based stuff. But let's be fair, there's a huge amount of crossover in a lot of these boxes, purely because a lot of people will just incorporate them in their Ultramarine army, although they'll buy the Ultramarine stuff to incorporate in their Iron Guard or White Scars setup, right? Or Imperial Fist, or whoever. So yeah, it always strikes me as a little bit strange that they would do something like that. And when it comes to retailing this stuff, you've already spent a chunk of change on the last Space Marine or 40k relevant pre-order, and now you've got to spend a chunk of change on the next pre-order. And it's almost becoming, especially in the run up to Christmas, where everything, I'll get to this in a minute, but there's less money to go around because people are starting to save. I call it the big contraction. So when I worked in retail way back when, you would notice in the months of September and October, there was actually a slight decrease a meaningful increase of 10, 15, 20% in the businesses I worked in anyway. Whilst people, you would think, I say hard money, whilst people don't part with their money anywhere near as much because they're saving for Christmas, the deals that might come out, they're saving for, Christmas presents for their children, family and friends and stuff like that, which is all fair. But there's a contraction there. So for any startup businesses like this, I'm feeling the pinch just a little bit more, because it's like, oh, now, you just made me spend or want to spend a chunk of change on that. Now you're doing another pre-order, which is so dense. You want me to spend another chunk of change on that. And then it'll happen again, probably in 2 weeks' time, right? It seems like I've almost given up trying to guess what's going to be released and when, especially you know, in the last month or so, where they've announced something, and then usually you would think they'd give a little bit of time to breathe, but no, it's out 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, right? So I believe they've just announced some more old world chaos stuff. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, I've not really read the blab on it yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up releasing in November at some point, just to fill a gap between the 40k releases or something. So it's just it's a very big cascade. Now the thing is the reason why it can be annoying is the plan is, and still is, and I'm sure this is how a lot of businesses run in this landscape anyway, is like, when you get new pre-orders, or you get the new pre-orders, you know, let's be real, the GW stuff does make up for a fair portion of the store's income, but you want your pre-orders to sell, right? Because essentially they're gonna barrel over to the next set of pre-orders and pay for them, which should hopefully build some more revenue or more income to then pay for the next set of pre-orders, so on and so forth. So the hope is that you keep barreling and it snowballs, and then you can, you know, you can place big orders for the meaningful or the real big pre-orders. But if GW are already essentially on to the next thing and not giving their last stuff a little bit of room to breathe, then you're kind of like almost like circumventing that type of motion, I feel. Now, there's obviously, like, you know, maybe you're ordering too much, and that is absolutely right. Like, we probably do order a bit too much in some cases of certain pre-orders when we should order less. That'll just be a learning curve thing. But, you know, the people, I know there's pre-orders that, you know, there's an AOS one week. Are the people who are buying her shirt gonna really buy into Ultramarines? And, you know, you may think in your head, well, no, but there is crossover. There's 100% crossover. So, you know, if people are really excited about the Hushut stuff and they've just picked it all up, you know, are they going to have the spare change to pick up the Ultramarine stuff, or they would otherwise get the Hushut stuff, but since you've whacked another release literally a week later, are they going to be able to pick that stuff up, and are they going to miss out on those FOMO boxes? I'm sure this is absolutely part of GW's plan to keep it snowballing and to sell these types of, like, you know, keep up this FOMO schedule, this FOMO set of releases, so people do part with their money. I just feel it's not necessarily like for everyone else, like the consumer, nor necessarily the retailer. I don't know, it feels very pinchy, if that makes sense. And, you know, I've already forgotten about, like, the Imperial Fists, the Raven Guard, the Salamander, all that type of stuff's just gone. And then, you know, never going to get it again. And it's going to be the same with, like, this Iron Hands and White Car stuff. It's gone, never going to get it again. Even though it doesn't say the Ultramarine box is while stocks last, I can pretty much, you know, say I feel it's going to, you know, take the same trajectory and just disappear. You know, when the stocks have ultimately run out, type of thing. From a retailer perspective, there's not much to get invested in, if that makes sense. I guess you could kind of liken it to the Pokemon market, where there's a new release, you might dump £8,000 into this brand new release, and then once all is done and dusted, you make £9,000. But that's it, it's a one-off. And will you get more of that release anywhere down the line? Finger in the wind question, you just don't know. So, and it's starting to feel why I imagine that feels like, where, you know, we're going to get X amount of these Crux Terminatus boxes, but once they're gone, that's it, they're gone. And they're not very profitable to begin with necessarily. Do you get what I mean? So there's very little margins in these things. And it's like, okay, we might make a little bit of money, but, you know, it's not going to, let's say we order 10. Those 10 boxes are not going to translate, if sold, into 20 new Battle Force boxes when the time comes to buy them. It's not that type of scale. Do you get what I mean? You know, so it's just very, it's tough to buy into that type of thing, because it's it's so minimal a markup or a process that you're only getting it once, and then that's it, it's gone. And then you're on to the next thing, which might absolutely crash and fail. And I'm guessing this is, you know, the type of stuff that the Pokemon market can end up getting into, and that's why they get into trades and selling singles and then trying to buy into rare cards and make a solid markup on them. Do you get what I mean? You don't really have that in the Warhammer world, or even the tabletop gaming world in general. It's a very, very small portion, if you know, when that exists. And usually if you're dealing in second-hand goods, it can't be within the same business that does your primary goods, usually. Certain distributors and companies have clauses and contracts and stuff like that that don't allow you to do that in any meaningful fashion anyway. So, you know, we don't have like the second-hand market with super rare models, you know, which we can, you know, you can buy cheap and then sell high type of thing. It just doesn't exist. You get the commemorative models in Games Workshop's cases, but even then, most retailers won't sell them at a markup at all, so it doesn't really make sense. I feel like I've rambled quite a lot in there, but just to rewind it a little bit and essentially, like, you know, put some stakes in ground. Yeah, I feel GW's release cycles just more recently has become a bit cannibalistic upon itself. So, you know, if you're already buying into the White Scars and you've bought into the Drukhari and you wanna get some of the Ultramarine stuff, but you know, wait, there's more. There's going to be some Battle Force boxes and stuff like that that come very, very soon as well. And this is on top of the price adjustments recently. I can see, you know, why some people might be a bit overwhelmed, and you know, just to say, like, the retailer probably feels it exactly the same way. So yeah, that is my my thoughts on the pre-order cycle. You know, ultimately it's all very fun still. There's some very cool stuff coming. I'm really excited about all this Ultramarine stuff. I'm probably going to buy the Victrix on my guard myself. I think they're really cool. You know, and should be a fun little paint project. I'm not sure if I'm going to do is it the Ancient, the guy with the banner? Yeah, maybe not. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But what do you think about, you know, GW's pre-order cycle? Do you find it sometimes tough to keep up, both, you know, just monetarily or just in general, right? Like the constant change of the market, moving on to the next pre-order, knowing what's coming out, all that type of stuff. Is there anything you're excited for in the upcoming releases? You know, what do you feel about all this Ultramarine stuff? The poster boys, you know, are back, and they're back in quite a meaningful way, right? A good amount of force, and Terminators are always cool. What do you think about that? Let us know in the comments below. Whilst we're here, we've still got a painting competition on in store, so go over to the website, www.Epics'N'Stuffs.com. Check out the rules. We've had a few entries already, which, you know, I think we've got 10 entries already, which was massive. I didn't expect to get that many so soon. Usually they're always backloaded with loads of entries in the last minute. But we've got a few really cool entries. You can check them out on our Instagram. We post them up every time we get a new entry. And yeah, just check out the website in general, right? Any support through there helps a lot. So with that, I will end it. Take care, have fun, and see you soon.